Sarah Chen was not your typical tourist. At 24 years old, with her trendy clothes and phone always in hand, she had already built a following of over 500,000 subscribers on social media. Her content usually featured playful pranks and silly interactions with strangers, which her followers couldn't get enough of. Living in Los Angeles, she worked as a content creator full-time, making enough money to travel the world and create more videos. On a crisp September morning in 2023, Sarah landed at Heathrow Airport, her eyes sparkling with excitement. This was her first trip to London, and she had big plans to create content that would make her followers laugh. Her bright pink suitcase rolled behind her as she made her way through the airport, already filming herself and narrating her journey to her social media followers. "This is going to be epic," she told her phone camera, flashing her signature peace sign. The taxi ride to her hotel near Buckingham Palace gave her plenty of ideas for future videos. She watched the famous London landmarks pass by, mentally noting each location where she could film something fun. Sarah's hotel room had a partial view of Buckingham Palace, which made her even more excited. She had seen countless videos of the royal guards, famous for their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. More importantly, she had watched many viral videos of tourists trying to make these guards laugh or break their serious expressions. In her mind, this was the perfect opportunity for content that would surely go viral. That evening, Sarah spent hours researching the royal guards online. She learned that they were actual soldiers, not just tourist attractions, but this information didn't really sink in. Instead, she focused on watching funny videos of tourists interacting with them. She even made notes about what kinds of jokes and actions seemed to get the most reactions. "If other people can do it, I can do it better," she thought to herself, planning her outfit for the next day. She chose her most colorful clothes, thinking they would look great on camera. Her followers always loved it when she wore bright colors. It was part of her brand. The next morning, Sarah woke up early, wanting to be one of the first tourists at Buckingham Palace. She spent extra time doing her makeup and styling her long black hair, knowing that this video could be her biggest hit yet. Her regular followers were already excited, as she had been hinting at a super special video coming soon. Before leaving her hotel, Sarah checked her equipment: her main phone for filming, a backup phone, and a small portable fan for that perfect hair-blowing effect she liked to use in her videos. She also packed some props: silly glasses, a fake mustache, and a small speaker to play funny sound effects. In her mind, this was just another day of creating entertaining content. Walking toward Buckingham Palace, Sarah noticed other tourists already gathering near the royal guards. She watched how people interacted with them, taking selfies from a distance and trying to make them smile. But Sarah wasn't interested in doing what everyone else was doing. She wanted something different, something that would make her videos stand out. As she got closer to the guards, she noticed the warning signs posted around the area. They clearly stated that visitors should not touch or interfere with the guards, as they were active duty soldiers performing an official function. Sarah read these signs but didn't take them seriously. In her mind, these were just suggestions, not strict rules. After all, she had seen so many videos of people getting close to the guards without any real consequences. Sarah spent the next hour observing the guards and their routines. She noticed how they marched, where they stood, and when they changed positions. All this time, she was recording short clips for her social media, building up excitement for what she planned to do next. Her followers were already commenting with enthusiasm, encouraging her to do something bold and funny. Little did Sarah know that her next actions would not only change her life dramatically, but would also serve as a powerful lesson about respecting cultural institutions and military personnel. As she prepared to film her main video, she had no idea that she was about to become famous for all the wrong reasons, and that her quest for social media fame was about to take a very serious turn. The afternoon sun was high in the sky when Sarah Chen decided it was time to create her masterpiece video. She had spent the morning practicing her lines and planning her approach in her head. The guard she chose to interact with was standing perfectly still, his ceremonial rifle held firmly against his shoulder. He looked young, perhaps in his mid-20s, making Sarah think he might be more likely to play along with her prank. Sarah started her performance by standing several feet away from the guard, making funny faces at him while her phone recorded. Her pink hair bow fluttered in the wind as she danced around, trying to catch the guard's attention. Other tourists watched with a mixture of amusement and concern, many of them pulling out their own phones to record what was happening. "Hey, Mr. Guard," Sarah called out in a sing-song voice, "I bet you can't keep a straight face forever." She continued her routine, pulling out her prop glasses with the fake nose attached. The crowd around her grew larger, some people whispering warnings to her while others eagerly waited to see what would happen next. A middle-aged British woman stepped forward, touching Sarah's arm gently. "Dear, you really shouldn't get too close. These are real soldiers, not entertainers." But Sarah brushed off the warning with a laugh. "Don't worry, I do this kind of thing all the time. It's just for fun." The guard remained motionless, staring straight ahead as his training required. Sarah took his lack of reaction as a challenge. She moved closer, now just a few feet away from him. The ceremonial rifle gleamed in the sunlight, catching her attention. In her mind, a new idea formed, one that would surely make her video go viral. "I wonder what would happen if I just..." She whispered to her camera, giving her audience a mischievous wink. Sarah's heart was racing with excitement as she stepped even closer to the guard. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, and several people called out for her to stop. In one swift motion, Sarah reached out toward the guard's rifle. Her perfectly manicured fingers were just inches away from the weapon when everything changed. The guard's training kicked in immediately, his years of military discipline taking over. The guard's voice boomed across the courtyard, "Stand back." His command was so powerful that Sarah stumbled backward, nearly falling over. The ceremonial rifle, which she had thought was just a prop, was now pointed directly at her. The guard's face, which had been expressionless moments before, was now stern and serious. Sarah's phone slipped from her trembling hands, hitting the pavement with a crack. The sound echoed in the sudden silence that had fallen over the crowd. Her legs felt weak as she realized the severity of what she had just tried to do. The other tourists quickly backed away, creating a circle around Sarah and the guard. Many were still recording, but now their phones captured a very different scene from the funny video Sarah had planned. Some parents quickly moved their children away from the area, while others stood frozen in shock. Within seconds, 2 palace security officers appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. They moved with practiced efficiency, quickly surrounding Sarah. Her face had lost all its color, and her hands were shaking as she tried to pick up her broken phone. "Miss, you need to come with us immediately," one of the security officers said firmly. Sarah noticed his hand was resting on his radio, ready to call for additional backup if needed. The other officer was already speaking into his radio, reporting the incident. As Sarah was led away by security, she could hear the whispers and see the disappointed looks from the crowd. Some people were already posting their videos online, and she could imagine how quickly this would spread. Her dream of creating viral content was coming true, but not in the way she had hoped. The guard returned to his position, resuming his stoic stance as if nothing had happened. But the incident had demonstrated exactly why these guards deserve respect and why the warning signs were there for a reason. Sarah's attempt to create entertaining content had instead created a serious security incident. As she was escorted into the security office, Sarah finally understood the gravity of her actions. This wasn't just another prank for social media. She had interfered with a military officer on duty, and now she would have to face the consequences. The real drama was just beginning, and Sarah Chen's London adventure was about to become a very different kind of story than she had planned. Inside the Buckingham Palace security office, Sarah Chen sat in a hard plastic chair, her shoulders hunched and her makeup smeared from wiping away tears. The room was small and brightly lit, with security monitors covering one wall. 2 Metropolitan Police officers had arrived and were discussing her case with Palace security. "Miss Chen, do you understand the seriousness of what you just did?" asked Officer Thompson, a stern-looking policeman with graying hair. Sarah nodded silently, her hands clutching her damaged phone. The screen was cracked, but it was still recording, capturing her shame instead of the viral moment she had hoped for. The security footage played on one of the monitors, showing multiple angles of her incident with the Royal Guard. It looked much worse from these perspectives. Her playful dancing now seemed disrespectful, and her attempt to touch the rifle appeared clearly deliberate. Sarah winced as she watched herself reach for the weapon. "That guard is a member of the Queen's Guard, an active-duty soldier of the British Army," explained Officer Williams, the younger of the 2 policemen. "What you attempted could be considered assault on military personnel. This is not some tourist attraction or entertainment show. As they spoke, Sarah's phone started buzzing continuously. Videos of the incident were already spreading across social media platforms. Her followers were divided, some defending her as just trying to create content, while others condemned her actions harshly. News websites were picking up the story, with headlines like "Social Media Influencer Threatens Royal Guard" and "American Tourists Prank Goes Terribly Wrong." The palace security chief, Mr. Richards, entered the room holding several documents. "We've contacted the American embassy," he informed her. "They've been notified of the situation, but due to the nature of the offense, you'll need to remain in London while this is investigated." Sarah's face paled even more. "Stay in London, but I have a flight back to Los Angeles tomorrow." Her voice cracked as the reality of her situation sank in. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Officer Thompson stated firmly. "We'll need to confiscate your passport temporarily. This is a serious security breach, Miss Chen. It's not just about making a guard laugh or creating content for your followers." A knock on the door interrupted them. A representative from the American embassy had arrived. Ms. Martinez, the embassy official, looked both concerned and disappointed as she reviewed the situation. "Sarah, you're going to need legal representation," she advised. "What you did today could result in criminal charges under British law." The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and official statements. Sarah had to write down her version of events, sign multiple documents, and have her fingerprints taken. Her hotel reservation would need to be extended indefinitely, at her own expense. Meanwhile, outside the palace, the story was gaining momentum. News vans had arrived, and reporters were interviewing tourists who had witnessed the incident. The royal guard who had confronted Sarah was being praised for his professional response to the situation. Sarah's parents in California were notified, and their reaction was a mixture of concern and disappointment. Her father, a high school teacher, was especially upset about how this might affect his reputation. "What were you thinking?" he asked during a brief phone call. "This isn't like your usual pranks. You tried to grab a weapon from a soldier." By evening, Sarah was finally allowed to return to her hotel, escorted by a police officer. She had been given strict instructions not to leave London and to report to a police station the next day. Her social media accounts were flooded with messages, some supportive, many critical, and some downright hostile. In her hotel room, Sarah sat on the bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her carefully planned London adventure had turned into a nightmare in just a few hours. The consequences of her actions were just beginning to unfold, and she realized that no amount of followers or likes could fix this situation. Her phone continued to buzz with notifications, but for the first time in years, Sarah didn't want to look at social media. The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. This wasn't just about creating content anymore. She had crossed a line, and now she would have to face the serious consequences of treating a military duty as nothing more than an opportunity for entertainment. The morning after the incident, Sarah Chen woke up to find her name trending on every major social media platform. Her attempt to grab the Royal Guard's rifle had become international news, with video clips of the incident being shared millions of times across the internet. The footage, captured from multiple angles by other tourists, painted a clear picture of her actions and the guard's professional response. Major news networks had picked up the story. BBC News ran a segment titled "Social Media Stunt Gone Wrong at Buckingham Palace," while American networks focused on the California influencer's royal mistake. Sarah's phone was overwhelmed with notifications, messages, and calls from news outlets requesting interviews. Her social media following, which had been steadily growing before the incident, experienced a dramatic surge, but not in the way she had hoped. Thousands of new followers flocked to her accounts, not to support her content, but to leave angry comments and criticism. Many of her loyal followers began unfollowing her, disappointed by her lack of respect for British tradition and military personnel. "I can't believe you thought this was okay," wrote one former fan. "Those guards are real soldiers protecting the royal family. This isn't a TikTok playground." Sarah's sponsorship deals began crumbling. By mid-morning, 3 major brands she had partnerships with sent emails terminating their contracts. Their messages were polite but firm, citing clauses about maintaining a positive public image. The income she had relied on was rapidly disappearing. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, Tourists were more respectful than ever toward the guards. Many visitors took photos holding signs that read, "We respect our guards," and "Thank you for your service." The incident had sparked a movement of appreciation for the Queen's Guard and their important role. The Royal Guard involved in the incident, whose identity remained protected, received commendation from his superiors for handling the situation professionally. Military experts appeared on television to explain the training and discipline required to be a member of the Queen's Guard. "These are elite soldiers with extensive combat training," explained Colonel James Hartford on a morning news show. "The ceremonial aspect of their duty doesn't diminish their role as active military personnel." What happened yesterday could have ended much more seriously if the guard hadn't shown such restraint. Sarah's parents were dealing with their own fallout. Her father's high school students had discovered the connection, and he faced uncomfortable questions from both students and fellow teachers. Her mother had to take time off from work due to the stress of constant phone calls from media outlets. Local businesses in Sarah's hometown of Los Angeles began distancing themselves from her. A cafe that had prominently displayed her photo as a local social media star quietly took it down. Her old high school issued a statement clarifying that they did not endorse her actions. Around lunchtime, Sarah received a call from her lawyer in London. "The situation is serious," he explained, "but we might be able to minimize the damage if you handle things correctly from now on." He advised her to stay off social media and decline all interview requests until they had developed a proper strategy. The British public's reaction was particularly harsh. Radio shows were flooded with callers expressing their outrage at the disrespect shown to a centuries-old institution. British social media users started a campaign called #RespectTheGuard, sharing educational content about the history and importance of the Queen's Guard. Sarah spent most of the day in her hotel room, watching her carefully built online persona crumble. Her attempts to order food delivery were complicated when several drivers recognized her name and canceled the orders. Eventually, she had to use a different name just to get a meal delivered. By evening, a formal statement was released by Buckingham Palace. "We remind all visitors that the Queen's Guard are active-duty military personnel carrying out an important security function. Any interference with their duties will be treated as a serious offense and dealt with accordingly." The day ended with Sarah feeling more alone than ever in a foreign country. Her lawyer had scheduled meetings for the next day to discuss her legal defense, but the public verdict was already in. What she had thought would be a fun video had turned into a life-changing mistake, and the consequences were far from over. As night fell over London, #SarahChenGuard incident continued trending worldwide, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of treating serious institutions as mere entertainment for social media fame. 5 days after the incident, Sarah Chen found herself in a somber wood-paneled courtroom in central London. Her once vibrant pink hair was now tied back conservatively, and she wore a modest navy blue suit her lawyer had recommended. The gravity of her situation was reflected in the serious faces of everyone present. Her lawyer, Mr. Jonathan Pierce, had spent hours preparing her for this preliminary hearing. The charges were more severe than Sarah had initially expected: attempting to disarm a military officer on duty, interfering with royal security personnel, and disorderly conduct at a protected site. Each charge carried potential penalties that made Sarah's hands tremble as she sat in the defendant's chair. "All rise," called the court officer as Judge Margaret Blackwood entered the courtroom. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, had a reputation for being particularly strict with cases involving national security or disrespect toward British institutions. The prosecution presented their case first, showing multiple video angles of the incident. The footage seemed even worse in the formal setting of the courtroom. The prosecutor, Mrs. Helen Whitmore, spoke clearly and firmly. "This was not merely a tourist's misguided prank, Your Honor. This was a deliberate attempt to interfere with a military officer performing his sworn duties." Sarah's social media history was presented as evidence of premeditation. Her previous posts joking about making the guard laugh and creating the best guard video ever worked against her. The prosecutor argued that Sarah had planned to disrupt the guard's duties for personal gain and social media fame. Mr. Pierce presented Sarah's defense carefully. "My client acknowledges her grave error in judgment, Your Honor. She was operating under the misguided influence of social media culture, where such interactions are unfortunately often treated as entertainment. She'd had no understanding of the serious nature of the Queen's Guard's duties. During a break in proceedings, Sarah sat in a small conference room with her lawyer and parents, who had flown in from California. Her father, normally talkative and optimistic, sat quietly with his head in his hands. Her mother tried to maintain a brave face while wiping away occasional tears. The best-case scenario, Mr. Pierce explained, is a substantial fine and a suspended sentence. Worst case, well, let's focus on showing genuine remorse and understanding of the seriousness of your actions. The hearing continued with expert testimony from military officials. Colonel Richard Matthews of the Queen's Guard explained the extensive training guards receive and the vital security function they serve. These men are not street performers, he emphasized. They are highly trained soldiers protecting the royal family and national institutions. Sarah's opportunity to address the court came near the end of the day. Her prepared statement, carefully crafted with her lawyer's help, expressed deep remorse. I stand before you today deeply ashamed of my actions. I failed to respect not just a guard, but a soldier, an institution, and a nation's traditions. My attempt to create entertainment came at the cost of dignity and security, and I am truly sorry. Judge Blackwood listened intently, her expression unchanging. When Sarah finished, the judge spoke directly to her. Miss Chen, your actions represent a troubling trend in modern society, the belief that everything exists for one's personal entertainment and social media content. This court must send a clear message that such behavior will not be tolerated. The judge ordered Sarah to surrender her passport indefinitely and set strict bail conditions. She would be required to report to a local police station 3 times a week and was banned from approaching any royal or military sites in the United Kingdom. A date for the final hearing was set for 3 weeks later. As Sarah left the courthouse that evening, a small crowd of reporters waited outside. Camera flashes illuminated her face as she quickly walked to a waiting car, her parents shielding her from the press. Questions were shouted. Sarah, do you regret your actions? What do you say to your followers? Will you continue your social media career? Back in her hotel room, Sarah sat looking out at the London skyline. Her phone, once her constant companion, lay silent on the bedside table. She had deactivated most of her social media accounts on her lawyer's advice. The reality of her situation was clear. Her moment of thoughtlessness for social media fame could result in a criminal record and potentially even jail time. Her mother knocked gently on the door with some dinner, but Sarah had no appetite. The weight of her actions and their consequences was finally sinking in, and the outcome of her final hearing loomed uncertainly in her future. 2 weeks after the courthouse appearance, Sarah Chen's case had sparked an unprecedented global conversation about social media culture and respect for traditional institutions. News outlets worldwide continued covering the story, but the narrative had shifted from just reporting the incident to examining deeper societal issues. Former members of the Queen's Guard began speaking out in television interviews and documentaries. Sergeant James Wilson, who had served for 15 years, appeared on BBC's morning show. Every day, we faced tourists treating us like entertainment. What happened with Miss Chen was just the tip of the iceberg. We're trained soldiers, not theme park characters. Social media platforms were flooded with educational content about the Queen's Guard. Historical experts shared detailed information about their role, training, and importance. One viral video showing the intense selection and training process for Guard members reached over 50 million views. Military veterans from various countries joined the conversation. This isn't just about British tradition. Tourism companies in London quickly updated their guidebooks and websites to include prominent warnings about appropriate behavior around the Queen's Guard. Several tour guides began incorporating specific sections in their tours about military protocol and respect. The incident had unexpected effects on the influencer industry. Major brands started revising their contracts with social media personalities, adding specific clauses about respecting cultural institutions and military personnel. Some companies completely dropped their prank content creators, fearing similar controversies. Sarah's former content creator friends faced backlash for their initial defense of her actions. Many scrambled to delete their own videos involving the Queen's Guard or similar uniformed personnel. One influential creator posted a tearful apology for a video from 2 years ago where she had harassed a palace guard. Educational institutions took notice too. Several universities in the UK and US began using the incident as a case study in their media studies and journalism courses. Dr. Emma Thompson, a media ethics professor at Oxford, published a paper titled The Price of Viral Fame: Social Media's Impact on Traditional Institutions. The British public's response remained particularly strong. Local businesses near Buckingham Palace displayed signs reading, "Respect our guards," and "Photography welcome, harassment is not." Street artists created murals celebrating the professionalism and dedication of the Queen's Guard. A group of British teenagers started a TikTok trend showing respectful ways to photograph and interact with guards, complete with educational facts about their role. The hashtag #GuardRespect gained millions of views, effectively countering the previous trend of trying to make guards laugh or break character. Sarah's parents continued dealing with the aftermath back in California. Her father, speaking at a school assembly, turned the situation into a teaching moment. One moment of thoughtlessness on social media can change your life forever. Think before you post and respect other cultures and institutions. Traditional media outlets produced in-depth documentaries about the Queen's Guard, featuring interviews with current and former members. These programs highlighted the rigorous training, the importance of their role, and the challenges they face from disrespectful tourists. Parliament members began discussing potential legislation to increase penalties for interfering with ceremonial guards. "We must protect our traditions and the men and women who uphold them," argued MP Elizabeth Hartford during a session. The incident even influenced popular culture. A famous British rock band released a song titled "Standing Guard," which criticized social media culture and its impact on traditional values. The music video, featuring actual guards in silhouette, went viral globally. Tourism behavior at Buckingham Palace noticeably changed. Visitors began showing more respect, maintaining proper distances, and even calling out those who acted inappropriately. Gift shops reported increased sales of educational books about the Guard's history, while sales of novelty items making fun of them declined. As her final hearing approached, Sarah's case had become more than just about one tourist's mistake. It had evolved into a global conversation about respect, tradition, and the impact of social media on society. The incident served as a wake-up call about the real-world consequences of treating everything as potential content for online entertainment. The public reaction had transformed a moment of thoughtlessness into a movement for change, forcing people worldwide to reconsider how they interact with historical institutions and military personnel in the age of social media. 3 months after the incident, Sarah Chen sat in her small rented London apartment, preparing for what would be her most important video yet. The backdrop was simple, just a plain white wall, very different from her previously colorful and energetic content. Her appearance had changed too. Her hair was back to its natural black, and she wore a simple blue blouse. "Hello everyone," she began, her voice steady but humble. "Many of you know me as the influencer who tried to grab a royal guard's weapon. Today, I want to share what I've learned from this experience." The video was unedited, showing a new, more authentic side of Sarah. The court had reached its final decision a week earlier. Thanks to her genuine remorse and cooperation, she had avoided jail time but received a substantial fine, 6 months of probation, and was required to complete 200 hours of community service in London. She was also banned from creating social media content about military or security personnel. Her community service involved working with veterans organizations, where she learned firsthand about military life and sacrifice. "These past months have completely changed my perspective," she explained in the video. "I've had the privilege of meeting real soldiers, hearing their stories, and understanding the weight of their responsibilities." Sarah shared how one veteran, a former Royal Guard himself, had taken time to explain the history and significance of the Queen's Guard. "He told me about standing for hours in all weather, missing family events, and the pride they take in their duty. I realized how disrespectful my actions were, not just to one guard, but to an entire institution." The video included clips from her work with veteran groups, showing her helping at events, listening to their stories, and learning about military traditions. These weren't staged or edited for entertainment. They were genuine moments of learning and growth. Sarah also addressed the broader impact of social media culture. "We've created this world where everything needs to be content, where traditions and serious duties are seen as opportunities for likes and shares. I was part of that problem, but now I want to be part of the solution. Her parents appeared briefly in the video, sharing their perspective on how the experience had changed their daughter. The Sarah who came to London for social media fame is not the same person who stands before you today, her father said proudly. She's learned valuable lessons about respect, responsibility, and the consequences of our actions. The video went viral, but for very different reasons than her previous content. News outlets praised its sincerity and important message. Educational institutions requested permission to use it in their social media awareness programs. Even some military organizations shared it as an example of learning from mistakes. Sarah's new purpose emerged from this experience. She began working with a non-profit organization that educated young content creators about responsible social media use. Her presentations at schools and youth groups drew from her personal experience, helping others understand the real-world impact of online actions. Creating content isn't wrong, she would tell her audiences, but it needs to come from a place of respect and understanding. Not everything in life is meant to be entertainment. The Royal Guard incident became a case study in her presentations. She would show the footage, not to sensationalize it, but to demonstrate how quickly a thoughtless action for social media can escalate into a serious situation with real consequences. By the end of her probation period, Sarah had built a new kind of following. Her social media accounts, though smaller than before, now focused on educational content about cultural respect and responsible online behavior. She collaborated with cultural institutions to create content that celebrated traditions rather than mocking them. In her final meeting with her probation officer, Sarah reflected on her journey. "This mistake could have ruined my life," she admitted. "Instead, it gave me a new purpose and a better understanding of what really matters." The video ended with Sarah visiting a memorial for fallen soldiers, placing flowers respectfully. Her closing words resonated with viewers worldwide. "Sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the most important lessons. I came to London seeking viral fame, but I leave with something far more valuable: understanding, respect, and a commitment to using my platform for good." As Sarah's video spread across the internet, it became clear that her story would serve as a lasting reminder of the importance of respecting traditions and the responsibility that comes with having an online platform. Her personal growth from social media prankster to thoughtful advocate became an inspiration for a new generation of content creators.